Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I am here with another weekly wrap-up. I'm going to be going over the books that I read for this first week of July. I will be bringing up the last book that I read in June, but let's go ahead and get started because I have 8 books to talk about that I read this week. Plus, I'm going to be bringing up a book I forgot to bring up in my last wrap-up. So let's go ahead and get started on this week's reads. Okay guys, so I have to bring up a read that I forgot to bring up in my last week's wrap up to start off with. So I just want to bring it up here. I completely forgot to bring it up and I couldn't believe it. If you saw my June wrap up, it was on my top 5 or top 6 reads that I talked about. So when I was trying to even like post my, give them my links for, because it was an arc, I was like, where did I talk about this? Nowhere. I didn't even talk about it on my weekly reads. So I do want to bring that up here just in case you don't watch my monthly wrap-ups and you just kind of stick with my weekly wrap-ups. I'm just going to talk about it here real quickly, and then we will get started with the books that I read this last week. So that book is King of Obsession by Bianca Borell. This is a start of her new series. It is a mafia series. And let me see, I don't think I wrote the name of the series down. Sorry, I forgot. But it is, I probably listed it. I don't even know. Anyways, this is a mafia romance. And it is like a new fave for me for a favorite female heroine. Because I'm very picky about my badass heroines. I don't like it to have it shoved down my throat about what a badass they are. I want to see the actions of them being a badass. And Luciana in this book is a fucking badass, okay? She is a master assassin. She is the best in her field. She's the right hand to a mafia man that she was an orphan and she was being raised by nuns. And this mafia man, he's like one of the heads of like, he's over, I think in Italy, but I think they're located, I think that his big mansion and like where the powerhouse council or whatever it's called was located, I think they were in Venice, if I remember correctly, but I'm not positive. But he like is a mafia man, but he's also in charge of this big mafia council, and he ends up adopting her. He takes her in, and he basically trains her to be an assassin and to be kind of his right-hand assassin. And so she's a powerhouse at what she does, but she wants to know who her parents are. She's been searching for her parents. She wants to find the truth. It's obvious this guy knows something, and he won't tell her. So a guy on the council, he actually offers her the information, but he wants her to kill his cousin because his place on the council is kind of not perfect, and he's kind of threatened by this cousin that he has out in Reno that he could maybe take his spot. So she basically goes on this mission. You know, her boss, the mafia guy, I can't remember his name, sorry, that adopted her, he would not be okay with this. It's always missions that he sets for her, but she tells him she's going on a vacation, and she ends up going to Reno to kill Enzo, and that is our hero. And he is running the mafia. He's a billionaire. He's got everything going. He's really suave, sexy, badass mafia man. And she basically botches the job, but she's never missed a shot. And for some reason, I don't know how she did it this time, but she tried shooting him through his window, but it was bulletproof glass. And he knew she was in town. He has spies everywhere. And so when he found out she came to town, he was kind of ready for her. And so that leads to them having all these interactions together and her attempting to kill him. It's more like foreplay, like they are super into each other. And so eventually they start kind of hooking up and falling for each other. And so she's kind of on this time crunch of like, she has to kill him, but she doesn't want to kill him. And he really wants to make her like his queen. And so something bad kind of happens where he thinks she betrayed him. She didn't. She did it for reasons. But he feels betrayed, and so he like hates her and wants revenge. And that will lead into him capturing her in the last half of the book. And so it's kind of a captor-captive situation, but she's a badass. She could totally get herself out of this if she wanted to, but she really wants to earn back his trust and show him that she loves him. And so it's crazy. So I loved this. I love that this heroine was so strong. She could like beat up all his men. Like, she's just so badass, but that she also shows like a really vulnerable side to her, and their romance and chemistry was off the charts. I really loved how gone for her this hero was. And so I loved this book. So obviously, like I mentioned before, it was on my favorites from June. So if you want to see my other favorites from June, make sure you check out my June wrap up. I go over my stats and my favorite reads there. But I had given this 5 stars and then 4 chilies, I believe. Yeah, 4 chilies, because it was spicy. There was a lot of good time in this. So definitely check that one out. It's the start of a new series. It's a good place to start with Bianca Borell if you haven't read her before. I really love her mafia romance. And so check her out. Okay, so now we're going to get to the books that I actually read this week, okay? So the first book that I read actually was the last book for June, and that is Viridia by Vera Queen, and she actually reached out to me on Instagram and sent me a copy of her book to read. And so while I wasn't really jiving with it in the beginning, it was really hard to get into. It's a third POV like kind of thing, but it's a contemporary romance, so it was kind of confusing for me at first. And then I did think there was like some over the top trying to have like eloquent prose and like big words that wasn't really needed. So it took me, like, I might have DNF'd this at the start because I wasn't fully like connecting with the writing style, but eventually like it got better with the writing style and it wasn't doing that anymore. So it's kind of hard to explain, but I did actually keep going with this. I did finish this book. And I really wanted to give it a try because the author reached out to me and sent me a copy of her book. So that doesn't necessarily mean I'm always going to make it through the book, but I really wanted to try because I did think the story had a lot of promise. So this is like a contemporary billionaire Cinderella retelling romance. And this is between Viridia and Blaze. And Viridia is had a really tough life. She was basically abandoned by her mother, and there's a lot of mystery behind that throughout the book. And then a woman had took her in, and then she disappeared, so she felt like she was abandoned by her. And so she has been trying to find her and find the truth about what happened. And there's this person that like sends her like secret like letters, and she has to like burn the letters, and she's kind of sending her on this kind of scavenger hunt, almost like a trail to try and find out what happened to the woman that basically became her mom. It wasn't really her mom, but she was the one that like took her in after she was abandoned. And so she, you know, is just on her way to try and find this person that sends her to like London. So she goes there, and she is actually working at like a restaurant and a couple different jobs. She's really struggling to get by. And she had ran into Blaze at the restaurant. He was kind of an asshole to her because she accidentally like spilled stuff on him when they ran into each other on the street. And so they kind of had this like off kind of first meeting. But she ends up getting a job as a housekeeper and maid at his parents' house, and he goes over there all the time. And so they run into each other again, and they kind of like clear the air, and he's just very attracted to her, and they have this draw to each other. And so this is a very slow burn romance. It takes a while for anything to really happen between them, but then like by the time something happens between them, it's like halfway through, like they're pretty solid. So I was like, why is this long? Now it's not super long, but the writing is really small. And so it was like about, I think, 400 and something pages, but it felt the pacing was a little off. It felt like it was drawn out a little bit to me. There were some repetitive parts. So I think that's something the author would need to work on and tightening it up a little bit. I didn't think it needed to be this long. But I did enjoy the romance between them. I loved Viridia and I loved Blaze's characters. He was very cinnamon roll. He is like all in on her. He defends her. He takes care of her. He's very swoony. So like, I think he kind of saved this book, because the problems that I had with this book were the other female characters. I don't love it when authors write females as like villains and evil toward other women. And I mean, I understand there are women out there like that, but like, can we have some like female empowerment here, or females working together or defending other females, instead of the female being a villain and being like conniving, selfish, vapid bitch? Because that's what the other heroines were, not heroines, but other female characters were like in this book. He has an assistant that is basically his best friend, but she's obsessed with him, in love with him. And I'm going to give you a trigger warning right here, and I'm going to mention it, is that she does drug him because he turns her down. And so her answer is to drug him and sleep with him. And, yeah, so that's one of the female characters. And then there is his cousin, who he's supposedly really close with, but she's one of the most evil characters too. And they like belittle, like bully, they're extremely cruel to Viridia. And the cousin's husband at one point is like almost assaulting Viridia, like, because she was helping out at a party and the cousin was passed out, and he's like grabbing her, trying to like make her come, have sex with him. And so Blaze gets involved, but the cousin decides to blame the whole thing on Viridia, and that she was throwing herself at him and he didn't want her, and like victim blaming. And it just really pissed me off, because it was the entire book was these vapid, self-centered, fucking psycho bitches being cruel and adding conflict to their relationship that didn't need to be there. That was like nonstop in this book. So I did not like that. I'm so sick of the over the top evil hair, like chick and the guy's life. I don't like it. And then there's like this bad guy, that the bad guy that's revealed that, maybe helped make her second mom, or, not her real mom, whatever, disappear. It was obvious from the get-go, so I kind of already knew who it was. And I thought it was a little too villain, mustache twirling type of hero, like villain. You know what I'm saying? So, while I didn't hate this story, I thought the romance was good. I thought there was a lot of good things. I just think it needed a little help with pacing, not be as long, not so much repetitive stuff. And obviously not having all other female characters be bad would be a little nice, like we needed somebody in Viridia's corner except for Blaze. It can't just be him constantly always fighting for her. I get what she's trying to do, make the hero be so swoony and he's always there for her, but like I just didn't like that aspect of this. So I did end up giving this one 3 stars, because I do think it had a lot of potential. Just some of those things are personal preferences, so you might really love this if you don't mind that. I will say just give it past the first couple chapters if the writing style and the third POV is kind of throwing you off. You can just give it a little bit of time, and it does you kind of get used to it. So yeah, so I gave it 3 stars, and then I think 2.5 chilies. So a thank you to the author for letting me read this. I'm sorry if I'm being a little harsh on it. But no, I did enjoy it. It just had some of those issues that were a personal taste and a personal reason to me. All right. Okay, so then I had an ALC, and I listened to Undeniably Unexpected by Saman, and this is the 6th book in the Boston Irresistible Billionaires series. I've only read the last couple, I think, in this series, so you can definitely always just jump in anywhere. In the series, you won't be lost or anything. I definitely had no issues with that. But this one is about Loomis and Keegan. And Keegan, I think she's the youngest sibling. This is like kind of like a family of doctors, and she is actually a doctor. I think she's almost finished like being intern. I can't remember, but she's a doctor, but she's also a secret paranormal romance author, which I thought was really fun. And she really wants to make a go out of it, like being an author, but she's kind of hiding it. Only a couple people in her life know that she's doing that. And she, so she's kind of been reached out to by a publisher, and they're interested in publishing her books. So this is a big point in her life where she's trying to figure out what she wants to do. She still wants to be a doctor or go full on as an author. And then Loomis is like this bad boy, sexy British actor. And he had kind of like a secret baby thing happen to him where he didn't just realize a baby was like left and it was his baby and he never knew. And so now he's trying to get custody of this baby, but he is single. He's an actor. He's like, he had kind of a sketchy past. He did go to like, prison. I think when he was younger, he hung out with a bad crowd. And so he's really worried about getting custody and, with his upcoming film that's happening and all that kind of stuff. So they end up kind of like, they've known each other. She really crushed on him, obviously as his actor persona, but then when she met him, she crushed on him too, but he kind of like didn't go there with her. So she felt like he just was never really interested. So but he definitely was, but he just wasn't in that place. He's never really a relationship guy. So he kind of just stayed away from that. Anyways, what ends up happening is he's, I believe, going to be out there doing a film out there. So he's got a house and everything, and he's setting everything up, and they've had some run-ins together, and they end up getting photographed by the paparazzi and what looked like an intimate situation. And so now they're thinking that they were together. And so they kind of decide to do a fake dating thing to kind of help out with his custody, to show that he's in a stable relationship. She comes from an amazing family. And so they end up, she was kind of planning to get away because she injured herself. So she wasn't able, I think it was like her hand or whatever. And so she couldn't really work, so she's on leave from being a doctor for a bit. And so she was already kind of planning to get away. So they decided to get away together to kind of get away from all the paparazzi and press. And they go to the Florida Keys. I think they were going for like a few weeks. And so it's going to be the three of them, him and his, baby and her. And they basically all go to like a very secluded, she thought it was like, she has a very rich family. And so when he said, oh, it's like a cottage, she was thinking, yeah, probably not a cottage. It's probably huge. No, it was a pretty like small, intimate type of cottage. So they're definitely in this forced proximity situation together. And so they are really like feeling each other and really liking each other. So they decide to kind of have a fling while they're there. But of course, like feelings are going to come into play, and, they kind of really start like being this great unit together with like the baby and everything. And, it's just very sweet. So what I liked about this, though, was it was a very mature romance. Like, they really communicated together. Like, they didn't just jump to conclusions when they overheard somebody say something. So I really liked that. It was just very sweet. I had a great time with this. So this one was narrated by Will Watt and Samantha Brentmore. And I don't know if I've listened to Will Watt before, but he had an amazing British accent. So he was definitely bringing the heat. It was sexy. I had such a good time with this one. So I gave this one 4.5 stars and then 3.5 chilies. Okay, so then I had another ALC, and this was Skate the Line by S.J. Sylvis. This is the second book in the Blue Devils hockey series. This is my first book by this author, and I just loved this book. It really hooked me right away, and guess what? It's a single dad nanny hockey romance. Say less. I love single dad nanny. I don't know what it is, but I always love those. So in this, we have Rhodes Volkova and Sunny. And this is Grumpy Sunshine. You can tell who the Sunshine's going to be. It's our Sunny. But he is a pretty grumpy, standoffish, very serious hockey player. And he has a daughter, I think it was, right? Yes, sorry. I have all these different single dads going on here. Okay, so he did have a daughter, and he's a single dad, and he's having issues getting nannies because they all just are trying to be his nanny to like hook up with him and throw themselves at him. So he's just very like over it. And so he needs a new nanny, and Ellie steps in. I'm sorry, Ellie's his daughter. Sorry, Sunny steps in to be the new nanny. He doesn't want her at first because she's very attractive and he thinks she's going to be like all the other chicks that are just throwing themselves at him. But so at first he turns her away, and then he has a disastrous thing go down with his current nanny he just got. She had ended up locking his daughter in the room, and so she calls him through her like iPad. And so he ends up he's like away at a hockey game out of state, so he ends up calling Sunny to go take over and help him. And she was like on her way out of town because she doesn't live there, so she was kind of trying to start fresh. She had a traumatic thing happen with her previous dad, like boss. So she's trying to start over, go somewhere else. And her friend happens to live in this same area, and so she was trying to get her to come get a job there. So she goes, helps out, and Ellie like is kind of tough to trust anybody, but her and Ellie just had such a great connection, and she starts to be their nanny. When he sees where she was like gonna stay, he does not like that, so he actually moves her in, so she becomes like a live-in nanny. And so they just have this like really great banter. He's very grumpy, but he's very attracted to her. She's attracted to him. And so they really start to like fall for each other. But it was a good like slow burn of them falling for each other. And then I liked how she didn't hide her past from him and like what happened to her. She was honest. And so, of course, we are going to have some suspense element with that guy from her past was kind of like stalking her. And so he's going to come into play later in the book. But I really loved this. I loved their slow burn. I loved them being like this really sweet family unit, and how much she really just brought to his life and kind of made him open up more. And so I had a great time with this one. This one was narrated by Connor Craze and CJ Bloom, which of course, always fantastic. He actually even does a great job doing like, he'll speak Russian sometimes. And it's hot, but so I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. There was some really hot scenes in this where she's was assaulted and has issues with like sex again, and so they started out their relationship of like, oh, I'm just gonna be there for you and help you feel comfortable with sex again. That's kind of how it starts, and of course feelings come into play, but he does some like light bondage with her, edging, that type of stuff, and it was hot. So again, had a great time with that one. Okay, I had another ALC. As you can see, I was going through a lot of audiobooks this last week at work because it was crazy. And then I was physically reading one book that was kind of taking me a while to get through. Not because it was bad, it was great. But yeah, anyways. So I had Deepth Thraw by C.D. Reiss. This is the second part of the Mortal Empire. Now, I read the first part, Blood Bride, last month. And then now I thought it was going to be a duet. But this one kind of ends with like still unanswered questions, kind of a cliffhanger, and a lot of unresolved issues. So I feel like it's actually going to be a series, I guess. So I don't know. That kind of frustrated me because I thought I was reading a duet, and and it's long too, because like both the books, I think, were 14-hour audiobooks. So it's not like a quick little duet. They're pretty long. But this is continuing their story. So I don't want to give too much away because this is a vampire mafia type of situation. And Carmine is our hero. He is the mafia man, vampire in charge. He has a pretty bad wound that was done to him that he could be like dying from. And so, like, he needs the Strega witch to, like, feed off of her blood to help him heal. And then he ends up forcing Luna to marry him, and she's his blood bride because she's one of those witches, and she has powers that she doesn't fully know all her powers yet. And so it does end up on a cliffhanger in the last one, and we do pick up right where we left off on that. But now Luna has kind of been left by Carmine because he's on a journey to find this special knife that supposedly is going to be able to heal him or fix his situation. And he has left her in thrall. So she is in thrall, which it's like he can control her. She's devoted to him. She's under kind of like his spell type of thing. And so she's under complete thrall and she wants to be with him. and she's devoted to him. And so it's kind of, they spend a lot of time apart in this book, but they do end up kind of on the same journey a little bit. Sorry, I have to be kind of vague because I don't want to give anything away. But one thing I liked was in the beginning of this, the author did do like a recap kind of thing at the beginning, which I really appreciated because there was a lot of stuff that went on in the first one. I will say these books are kind of strange because I felt like I was confused a lot of the time, but that could just be a me thing, and it could be that they are trying to make you be confused to continue the series, because a lot of things that I thought would be resolved in this one weren't. So that could be going on. But I really like their connection. I love their chemistry. In this one, I really fell for Carmine a lot more. You get to see, there's a bunch of flashbacks in the beginning to how he became a vampire and what he went through and everything. So I thought that helped us get more of like his character arc, and he became more of a multifaceted character than just this like, vampire guy. So I really liked that part of the story. So I don't know what else I can say because I don't want to give anything away, but Luna is coming into her power, and there's a whole thing with them where she could go into people's brains and their minds and do things, make them go crazy or fix things inside them. And she had happened to pull like this string or cord or whatever they call it. And so they think like she made him love her that way. And then she's in thrall with him, so they're kind of trying to figure out, do we really love each other, or is it all these other things that made us fall in love with each other? So anyways, I enjoyed this. This was it's duet narration with an entire cast. The main characters are Jason Clarke and Samantha Brentmore. And then we have Rose Dioro, Dane Anderson, Scott Turner Schofield, and Marcus Rothenberg are all like featured in this. So it's really good audiobook, especially with the full cast and duet narration. So it helps pick up the pace a little bit, because I do think the pacing is a little slow in these books a little bit. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 3 chilies. Okay, so then I read Photo Finish. This is the book that was taking me a few days to get through because I've just been really tired at work, and it's been crazy. But this is the second book in the Gold Rush Ranch series by Elsie Silver. I'm trying to read this series finally. The first one I freaking loved. I will say that these books are just a little special because I feel like it's more geared toward the horse lover, and I'm a horse girly. And so the first book, like, I loved it so much. It was almost a 6-star because I loved Dee Dee, the horse, and her relationship with the horse so much that almost put that book up to a 6-star just because of that. But anyways, in this one we have Violet, and she is actually, if you have read the Chestnut Springs series, she is actually the little sister to that group of brothers. So Cade, my man from Heartless, it's his little sister. And she is actually kind of moved away from that ranch because she had to get away from her overbearing brothers, and father. They're very overprotective. And way back, she had actually, or not way back, maybe a couple years, I can't remember what time frame it was, but she had actually posted some news of herself on this online forum because she was kind of just trying to establish some independence and do something kind of crazy for her. And she ends up, start talking to a guy online. He actually wanted to propose them be kind of like a cam girl situation, but she was not interested in doing that. But they kept talking every day. So this is actually Cole, and he is the brother of the hero from the first book, and he has got a lot of trauma. He's a very damaged, scarred hero, and he doesn't really do in-face sex anymore or relationships because of how he was burned. And so he just he's very lonely, wants a relationship with her, and they do it online. So they talk for, I think it's a year. And then eventually things lead to her kind of showing herself, actually doing a live video and, doing some stuff for him, but he doesn't reciprocate, and so things kind of fall apart from them. And then when you see in the previous book, when she raced Dee Dee and like won the race, he shows up and he's the brother of the hero from that book. And he basically calls her by her online name, and she freaks out because she's like, oh my God, only one person knows that. And so she knows it's him, and she's humiliated and kind of freaked out. And, you know, she, after the things kind of fell apart after that last interaction, she completely deleted the app, stopped everything, and moved on because she wanted more for herself than what he was really providing. So then it's been a year, another year passes of them kind of ignoring each other, but now Cole is actually living at the ranch because he has to help one of his other businesses is nearby, and so he's really getting in there and helping start it because it's kind of a mess. And so he doesn't want to live there. He kind of hated being at the ranch because there's a lot of bad memories for him, but he's living there. He's a very grumpy, closed off, very serious kind of guy. And Violet actually gets injured in one of her races. It was a pretty bad injury. And so she needs to be like she lived above like the barn or whatever. And she needs to be on the ground floor where it has a bathroom and room and everything because her leg is messed up. And so she ends up living in Cole's house with him. And so now they are kind of having this forced proximity situation, and they're kind of forced to be around each other and kind of talk about things. And it's just this very slow burn between them because, you know, of their past and everything that happened. So I really loved this. You know, I don't want to give away why Cole has some issues where he didn't want to be in a physical relationship and he's hiding something that's pretty big. So I don't want to give that away, but that's kind of his backstory. I did love that because he had PTSD from, he was an ex-soldier, so from Iraq time, but also he had PTSD because he watched his father die. He was a jockey in a race. And so he has a lot of trauma from that, didn't want to be around horses. He didn't care about that because it was devastating for him. And so one thing that was so amazing in this book, again, it's the horse girly in me, was we have the heroine from the first book. She actually sends this 2-year-old sweet little like ray of sunshine horse over to his area so that Violet can like kind of have horse therapy, like groom the horse, kind of start training the horse since she can't really ride right now for like a while. And so this horse just steals the show, you guys. Again, the relationship that Cole starts to build with this horse was so beautiful. Like he says he hates horses, but he was really attached to this horse. And so this horse, I think it was Pippi, I think that's the name of the horse, kind of just stole my heart again. So I just think it's so amazing. Horses can really heal, do a lot of healing. And I always wanted to like volunteer at one of those horse therapy kind of places. And so I just love that part of this. And the other thing that I loved was that Cole was actually actively going to therapy. And I always appreciate when we have a damaged or scarred hero that has issues, that they're not just resolved from the relationship, that they're actually going to therapy and actively working it. So, and that was like on page in here in multiple scenes. So I really appreciated that mental health rep and the therapy rep in this. So I really loved this. Them coming together, like Violet is no freaking, she's no doormat. She ain't gonna take his shit. So there is a third act conflict, and it does have to do with his issues with her job because he is so traumatized by what happened to his dad that he's trying, but he can't disconnect that. And he doesn't want anything to happen to Violet, but this is her career and her love. So that's kind of part of the third act conflict, but I loved how it was handled and resolved. And I just really, really loved this book. So again, another 5-star. I gave the first one 5 stars. This one was a 5-star. So trigger warnings again are the PTSD and death of a parent. And there was kind of some sexual harassment stuff that ended up happening with another jockey that's just scumbag. But I really loved this, and I'm so impressed with Elsie because these ones like were really good for her first, I think it was her first series. So I would definitely recommend, if you haven't read these yet, to pick them up. Anyways, love this. Oh, I think I didn't say, I gave it 5 stars, 2.5 chilies. Okay, so then I had another ALC, and this was Somehow You Knew by Harlow James. And this is the 5th book in the Carrington Cove series. And this one was really sweet. Like, I loved it. I think I like finished it in a day. I really am loving the series. I didn't read all of them. I think I've read like the last few, but you can definitely jump in anywhere and, you know, you'll love this series. It's a very small town, cute, pretty low angst kind of series. So in this, we have Gage and Hazel. And Hazel is I think the youngest sibling, and she is, a hopeless romantic, but she's very unlucky in love. She has been trying to date and it's just not going well for her. And at the point where this had picked up, she was kind of like done. She's like, I obviously am just not going to find somebody. Like, I'm over this. I don't want to date anymore. I hate online dating. And she's kind of like giving up. And there's this older woman. I think her name was Nancy, if I remember correctly. I can't remember, but she's kind of like the older woman in this series, and she was really close to her. She would kind of do some caretaking with her and hang out with her and stuff. And she had a nephew she was trying to hook her up with, but you know how that goes. You're just like, don't hook me up with anybody. So Hazel does have a meet cute with this really sexy tattooed guy. I think when she was like drinking coffee at the coffee shop or whatever, and he ends up asking her if he could draw something on her. Like, he obviously was like an artist, and she does let him, and it ends up being something that's really important to her. He didn't know, but he drew this hummingbird on her, and her father had passed away, and they were extremely close. And he had always told her, like, if you see a hummingbird, that's me checking in on you. And, you know, so it was a very sentimental thing for her. So she thought, like, oh my God, this means something. But what ends up happening later is that older woman died, and she ended up leaving millions of dollars to her and to her nephew, which happens to be that tattooed guy. His name is Gage, and he is a tattoo artist. He's really sexy, broody, kind of grumpy, but he has also sworn off relationships. So this woman actually is kind of a meddling woman. She wanted those two to get together, so she ended up making stipulations that they had to get married to get the money, and then they had to stay married for at least 6 months. So they end up doing this, and he's like, there's nothing that can happen between us. I don't do relationships. I'm not interested, even though he's very attracted to her and liked her a lot. So they end up kind of in this, obviously, living together, forced proximity. But little did they know, she also had other stipulations that she would send them these letters would be delivered to them from her of little tasks they would have to do together. So it's kind of like forcing them to spend time together, do romantic things together. And so they start to really fall for each other. And so it's just very cute. There is a reason why Gage didn't want to do relationships. And so that kind of comes into play here at the end. I don't want to give it away, but, you know, there's reasons. And so it was just really sweet and heartfelt, and I really enjoyed this one. So it was great to see everybody. I don't know if this might be the final book in the series, but I think it is, and I had a really great time with this one. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars and 3 chilies. And then it was narrated by Brandon Francis and Aaron Mellon. So definitely recommend that one. It was super cute. Okay, so then another ALC, you guys. You can see I'm powering through the audiobooks, not doing so great on the physical reading right now. But anyways, I listened to Forgotten Dreams by Natasha Madison. This is the 5th and I think final book in the Dream series. If you follow my channel, I fell in love with the first book, Shattered Dreams. Last year, it was one of my top 10 books of the year. And I've really been enjoying this series. The last couple few haven't really hit me the same way as the first 3. It did fall off a little bit for me from like how angsty and intense and the other three were. So I will say that. But I still really enjoyed this series. So this one is between Caleb and Sierra, and Sierra is actually best friends with the character. I think it was Lila. What was her name? Yeah, Lila from the previous book. And on her 25th birthday, she actually like is kind of going through, I think, her parents' safe or something. And she finds a newspaper clipping and stuff, paperwork and all this stuff. And she realizes that she was adopted. And then what's more shocking is the newspaper article was about a baby that was left at this firehouse and completely just abandoned by her parents. And so she kind of freaks out, and it's like a big change to her life, and she really wants to find her parents. So she decides she's gonna move to that town, which happens to be the same town Lila is living in, and that's our, from the series. And so she buys a house that's pretty run down. It needs a lot of work done to it, but she really wants to quickly move into that house. So she hires Caleb, his construction. He's a carpenter construction company. And he's really good. And he's kind of like the best one there. So he kind of hires additional crew and everything so they can overhaul this property quickly. And so he is really into her. They immediately have sparks flying. But then she finds out that he actually dated Lila previously. And so she was like, girl code, can't date him. And it was just kind of ridiculous because literally Lila went on like maybe 2 dates. Kissed him once, didn't like the kiss. It was like kissing her brother because she had been in love with the guy from the previous book forever. And so it wasn't really like they were like dating. And so it was kind of annoying, like she was really holding on to like not being with him because he dated her friend. And but Caleb didn't take that. He pursued her pretty hard. And so, they start to date and have these really sweet dates together. And you kind of realize Caleb was like way more romantic than her. He was so sweet with like the dates he did. Like one time he had her come to his house and he cooked dinner and he had like candlelight everywhere. And so it was just very sweet. So it's very low angst, very sweet romance. But the issues that come into play are actually because of her trying to find her parents, because somebody does not want her looking, and they're kind of sending threatening messages. And he doesn't want her to look at one point because he wants her to be safe. So that's going to lead to conflict. But it was very quick. I read it in a day while I was cleaning the house, and it was good. Like, I will say it's just not as good as the first 3 books. So I think that's why, I didn't love these last 2 books as much. But I did really still enjoy it. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and then 2.5 chilies. And then this was narrated by Gregory Salinas and Savannah Peachwood. I did really love it because at the end, the epilogues were really sweet because we got epilogues with all of our couples from the series. So it was really great to revisit all of them and kind of wrap up this series. So it was really good. Okay, so the last book that I read, I did do a vlog for this because I know it's a very beloved book. And so I wanted to vlog my experience to see, kind of like my books that I do, is it worth the hype? I've seen a lot of fellow booktubers really love this book. And so I was interested to see it. It has literally been on my TBR for the last couple months and I could never get to it because I was so behind. So I made it a priority this week to get it done. And I read Wolfsong by TJ Klune. And I can tell you guys, this is worth the hype. I freaking loved this book. It was so emotional. It's such a character-driven, beautiful, like found family story. And it really moved me. So I'm not even going to bury the lead here. I'm going to tell you right up, straight out of the gate here, this is a 6-star read for me. I cried multiple times. I think I was like crying for over an hour reading this because I was so emotionally invested in the characters. And I just love it when an author can do that because I love character driven, just like, The Boys of Tommen. That is such a heavy, so it deals with some heavy subject matter, but it's so character driven that you care about each of those characters that it makes it so much more emotional. So if you don't know, Wolfsong is a kind of like werewolf shifter romance. It's a friends to lovers, fated mates kind of situation going on here. And it is just so well written, so beautiful, very slow burn. And I love the way this author handled this because the characters meet when they're really young, but it never felt like creepy or anything. And I'll kind of explain that. But what we have here is Ox. His name is Oxnard, but he goes by Ox. He's this really big, sweet teddy bear of a guy. His father was very emotionally abusive to him. He was an alcoholic and he abandoned him and his mother. And so like he kind of always drilled in that Ox is dumb, that he's stupid and he'll never amount to anything, and that people will shit on him his whole life. And, you know, you just got to prepare for that. So he was just horrible. And I think it was when he was like 16. Yeah. So when he was 16, this family moves into the neighbor, like it's not right next door. It's kind of through the woods, but his neighbor. And this is the Bennett family. And when they move in, he meets Joe. And this kid, I believe he was like 10 at the time. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, maybe he was 10. Yes, I think so. But anyways, Joe is the youngest Bennett boy, and he actually runs into him first, like on the dirt road when he's walking home from school, and he immediately like kind of smells him and is just talking and like, oh my God, why do you smell like that? Why do you like, and he was just this sweet, rambunctious kid, and like invited him to come back to their house. And he was like almost climbing him like a tree and just like really into him. And when he gets there, you know, the family completely accepts him, and there's reasons that they are so happy and just know that they automatically know that there's something special to Ox. And you find out later that Joe had been kidnapped and tortured and abused and just totally broken down. So he wasn't actually speaking for like the last year. He wouldn't speak. And the second he saw Ox, he spoke. And so his parents were like, just knew immediately like Ox was special, and that special to Joe. And so they become really good friends. He becomes part of like their family. He goes there for like Sunday dinners all the time. They invite his mom into it. And eventually he does learn the truth that they are werewolves, that they're wolf shifters, and he is kind of becomes part of the pack. Even though he's human, they accept him as a pack where he can even like hear their pack like thoughts and stuff and have that sense of them. And so he becomes really good friends with all of the brothers, and really close to Joe, because there's a thing called tethers, and tethers are really important. It's like how they connect. A wolf needs a tether to keep him keyed into his humanity. If he loses that tether, he could go like rabid, crazy, you know, and lose his humanity. And so they realize that Joe's tether is Ox. There's another character that is actually been very protective and a father-brother type of figure to Ox, Gordo, and he actually works at the like the auto shop that his father used to work for. So he worked for him as a kid because they were really struggling. And that guy is actually a witch. And he knows this family and didn't want him getting involved. But there was like no stopping Ox from being involved with Joe. And so he is actually, Ox is also his tether. So he's a tether to two people. But he ends up helping, you know, Joe through issues and stuff. But as they're growing older, it's like Joe has been like pining after Ox, but there was an age gap. Like, and so it was handled really well because it didn't feel creepy at all. And they were really like friends, very close. You get to see kind of like a coming of age kind of story for them too, where like Ox is discovering his sexuality. He's bisexual. He's been into women and men. But poor Joe has to like watch him in these relationships, and it's really hard for him because he knows that like Ox is his mate. Like he just knows it. So it's just a very beautiful relationship. And then we have the threat that comes for them. and leads to a lot of issues later in the book. But when that happens, it's kind of when they're finally discovering their, like, because it's when they're older. So I believe Ox was like 23 and he was 17, I think. Joe was 17. And so he finally started to kind of see Joe in a sexual light, and like they're already love each other. And so he's like kind of waiting for him to get a little bit older, but basically they're going to be together type of thing. But this threat comes and it leads to Joe having to go after this threat and leave Ox behind. And so it is kind of a second chance in the last half of this book where, you know, the fallout of him leaving and everything like that. So I don't want to go, I'm going to have a vlog. I don't know if I'm going to post it this week or maybe next week. But I am going to have a vlog coming on this because I adored this story. I was bawling my eyes out when the tragic events are happening. Like, oh my God, it was just so emotional. I cried. I loved these characters. I love their connection. I love this whole family unit. It's one of the most beautiful found family stories I've read. So, oh my God, this is so worth the hype, and I'm so glad I read it. So I'm immediately going to be buying Ravensong because I think that's going to be Gordo's romance, and I really want it. So anyways, 6 stars. It's about 2 chilies. There's not a lot of spice in here. Obviously, they were young, so we don't even get to the spice till like near the end, really. And it wasn't even needed, you know? Like, this is another one of those, just like Boys of Tommen, where like we don't have to have the spice because we care so much about the characters, and you can feel their love and their romance, and everything else is just the driving force of this story. So anyways, guys, I loved it. So new 6-star read for me. So excited to continue with this series. And I hope you guys check it out. If you haven't already, jump into it because it is beautiful. All right, those are all the books that I have this week. Thank you so much for watching this video. I know it's another long one, but make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Help support my channel. I'm trying to grow this, still trying to grow this channel up. And leave me a comment down below, and I will see you guys on the next one.